What are biological hazards? How many types and classes of biological hazards? How biohazards spread? How biohazards enter the body of human beings? What are the key factors affecting infections and exposures due to biological hazards? All these topics have been discussed in the previous training session, Biological Hazards Part 1. In this training session, I'll highlight which occupations and professionals are at high risk because of biological hazards, how to carry out biohazards risk assessment, how to control exposure to biological agents, how the hierarchy of control work with respect to biohazards. And in the last portion of safety training session, Biological Hazards Part 2, I will mention the role and responsibilities of a health and safety practitioner. Those are working in the sites or projects where there are biological hazards are in abundant. How to deal with such hazards, what kind of safety strategies required to deal with workers and the management. So without wasting time, let's get started. Biological hazard part 2. Dear friends and fellows, let us understand first who are at risk of biological hazards. Employees who are most at risk from biological hazards include healthcare workers, animal breeding facilities and veterinarians, agriculture and food industry workers, municipal sanitation participants, sewage system operators and the workers. Those are handling animal and plant products. All these professions and professionals, they are at risk because of biological hazards. These workers, these professionals, they should go for regular vaccination and medical checkup as per the legal and contractual requirements. These workers and staff, they should not be dealt as an ordinary workers and staff. They need good diet. They need frequent medical surveillance and checkup. And if they feel any change in their body, safety practitioners should proactively take action and send them to professional medical facilities, hospitals for proper checkup. It is very easy and cheap to detect and treat any illness or disease in its initial stage. Maybe in the last stage, we have nothing to say but just to say sorry. And remember, sorry is not the ultimate of a person's life, as your life is important for you. Similarly, the life of any individual, senior manager, or just an ordinary worker, life is equally important for both. No difference at any level. Let us understand now some occupational infections. First of all, we'll discuss blood-borne pathogens. Pathogenic organisms that are present in human blood and can cause disease in humans includes but not limited to hepatitis A virus, hepatitis B virus, hepatitis C virus, HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. These all are the serious concerns, but especially HIV and HCV. After discussing blood-borne pathogens, let us understand the participation and effects of airborne pathogen. Airborne pathogens are pathogenic microbes small enough to be discharged from an infected person via coughing, sneezing, laughing, and close personal contact. or aerosolization of the microbe. The discharged microbes remain suspended in the air on dust particles, respiratory and water droplets. Illness is caused when the microbe is inhaled or contacts mucous membranes, or when secretions remaining on a surface are touched. You can understand how difficult it is to control airborne pathogen and how easy is the flow or spread of airborne pathogen from one person to another person. We are living in society. We have contacts and links with our family members and friends. But if we know something about biological hazards, at least we can convey this message to our family members, our friends, our workers, our staff, and the people whom we like to see them happy, safe, healthy, and productive. Do you know? Airborne pathogens spread by inhaling the germ, coughing or sneezing tiny droplets of moisture into the air containing pathogens. Pathogens can remain airborne for several hours and they may cause meningitis, influenza, pneumonia, and tuberculosis. Who might be affected? Pathologists, post-mortem room personnel, staff, agriculture workers, veterinary staff, and healthcare workers. But remember, precautions for tuberculosis also lower the risk for other airborne pathogens. We already discussed about bloodborne pathogens, airborne pathogens. Now we'll learn about foodborne pathogens. Dear friends and fellows, the food involved is usually contaminated with a disease, pathogen, or toxicant. Such food contains enough pathogens or toxicant necessary to make a person sick. FBD, foodborne diseases, are acute illnesses associated with the recent consumption of food. Foodborne diseases are classified into two types. Number one, foodborne infections, and number two, foodborne intoxications. What is food infection? Contaminated food acting as carrier of microorganisms. Infections include typhoid, cholera, dysentery, hepatitis. Food that serve as culture medium for growth of pathogen. Infection include salmonellosis, shigellosis, and gastroenteritis. These are the effects of, these are the outcomes of foodborne pathogens. And many of us, maybe all of us, in some part of our daily life are under the effects of such diseases, such medical conditions. And we are not feeling comfortable once we are affected by foodborne pathogens. So if we know how these pathogens, how they become the part of our body and food, we can prevent, we can avoid by following safety precautions. Our health and our safety is our responsibility, but without proper information and knowledge, in many cases we are unaware. And if we are not familiar how we can protect, how we can follow the safety precautions. Do you know? Bacterial foodborne infections include cholera, salmonellosis, typhoid fever, shigellosis, yersiniosis, E. coli infection, and listeriosis. But you have also to remember mycotic foodborne infections and viral foodborne infections. After discussing foodborne infections, let us understand now what are foodborne intoxications. These are diseases caused by consumption of food containing biotoxicants, metabolic products, and poisonous substances. What are biotoxicants? Biotoxicants are found in tissues of certain plants and animals, while the metabolic products, toxins, formed and excreted by microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi, and algae, while they multiply in food, are in gastrointestinal tract of man. Poisonous substances you can understand by the word itself, which may be intentionally or unintentionally added to food during production, processing, transportation, or storage. Either these are biotoxicants, toxins, or poisonous substances. All comes under foodborne intoxications, and they are going to affect the human health, and they are going to mark an alarming sign on the health and safety of an individual if he or she is under foodborne intoxication. Let us discuss few important points about waterborne. Let us discuss now few points about waterborne pathogen. Pathogens in water are important causes of waterborne disease, and waterborne diseases may be spread by contact with contaminated water. In the case if you are bathing, wading, contact with flood waters, pathogen lives naturally in the water, or maybe ingestion of contaminated water. These are the different shapes or forms how the waterborne pathogens can enter the human body. Dear friends and fellows, you are on the platform of Safety First Life. Today we are talking about biological hazards. This is a very serious and complicated topic, more specifically related to health. And once there is the health factor, safety is automatically involved. Now we'll try to understand how to prepare a sensible risk assessment against biological hazards. But the most important question is why to make risk assessment against biological hazards. By suitable and sufficient risk assessment, we can identify the hazardous characteristics of a known infectious or potentially infectious agent or material, the activities that can result in a person's exposure to an agent, the likelihood that such exposure will cause harm, and the probable consequences of such an infection. We will cover all these points in our risk assessment, and this is the ultimate purpose or objective of a risk assessment against biological hazards. The information identified by risk assessment will provide a guide for the selection of appropriate biosafety levels and microbiological practices, safety equipment, and facility safeguards that can prevent biological hazards. And you know very well, biological hazards create different medical conditions, diseases, and illnesses at work as well as at home, anywhere, at any time. Let us follow now the risk assessment process to evaluate biological hazards exposure. There are 5 steps. Step number 1, identify the hazard. And step number 2, decide who might be harmed and how. In this case, you have to know who is at risk, what are the procedures there, and which type of workers or professions at risk. Step number 3, evaluate the risk and decide on precautions. Step number 4, record your findings and implement them. And step number 5, review your assessment and update if necessary. In the evaluation, you have to prioritize risks. You have to determine necessary controls. You have to implement control measures. And lastly, you have to evaluate the effectiveness of control, because there are different types of controls. It might be engineering controls, administrative and work practice controls, or maybe the personal protective equipment. Now we are going to start hierarchy of controls. The most effective method is elimination, and the least effective is, you know very well, personal protective equipment, PPE. But most of the time, elimination is not practicable. But for substitution, you require a physical change to the workplace. It is possible. Let us understand now what might be included in engineering controls. Dear friends and fellows, in the engineering or bioengineering controls, you have to make sure vaccines, prophylactic antiviral medications, ventilation systems, engineer safe needle devices, automated equipment, appropriate container for the disposal of liquid biohazardous waste. These all categories, these all actions, these all points comes under engineering or bioengineering controls because we are talking about biological hazards. While in the administrative controls, you have to develop policies and procedures, routine practices such as universal infection control, safe working procedures, immunization programs, training, sign, biohazard labels, and the availability of SDS. Dear friends and fellows, you will not only go through the administrative controls, you will not only develop policies and procedures, safe systems of work, but equally, and the most important is to implement, to train your workers, to promote awareness and share knowledge, instruct and supervise them whether they are following the administrative controls or not. If they will not follow, the whole practice is just the waste of time, loss of money. There will be no healthy outcome. After discussing engineering controls, administrative controls, let us understand what includes in work practice controls. Work practice controls include don't eat, drink, apply makeup, handle contact lenses, or smoke in areas with likely exposure to blood or OPIM. Do you know what is OPIM? OPIM stands for other potentially infectious material. It might be specimen collection rooms, testing areas, areas where specimens located. You will not store food or beverages in refrigerators, freezers, coolers, shelves, cupboards where specimens are located. The least effective method of controls is personal protective equipment. After the provision and implementation of other controls, you have to make sure that gloves, gowns, masks, goggles, face shields, air covers, foot covers, all are available as per the worksite condition, as per the worksite requirements, as per the standards, and as per the demands of methods of statement and the risk assessment with respect to your site operations and activities. Remember, personal protective equipment helps to protect against exposure, but cannot totally prevent exposure. Good work practices in conjunction with appropriate PPE can minimize the risk of biological agents, spread of biological hazards, entry of biological hazards in the human body. So you will not ignore, you will not neglect, or you will not overreact while wearing personal protective equipment. This is your life and this is for your safety. Your life is most important for you as compared to a safety practitioner because safety practitioner has his own life. So don't wait, don't rely on, and don't blame the safety practitioners. You are responsible for your safety, and your safety should be your prime concern. But it doesn't mean that safety practitioners, they are not responsible. They are responsible by law. They have to follow, they have to implement safe working procedures, and they have to make sure that the workers, they are equipped with appropriate personal protective equipment while they are in a potentially hazardous area, or they are dealing with potentially hazardous infectious materials. Dear friends and fellows, as a health and safety practitioner, your role is to work proactively to eliminate biological hazards from the workplace as much as possible and to educate workers about occupational hazards, how it can be through internal trainings, through induction training, through toolbox talks, through safety meetings. You can motivate your workers as well as your site staff. And this is the most important role. Only a safety practitioner cannot do anything until the site staff and the workers, they will not follow and respect the site safety precautions, site safety rules and procedures. As you know very well, eliminating hazards from the work environment is always the first choice for preventing diseases, illnesses, or to avoid workplace accidents. But most of the time, when hazards cannot be eliminated, they should be controlled by other means, by other methods, as we discussed, through substitution, through engineering controls, through safe best practices, or by the use of effective and appropriate personal protective equipment. But how it can be possible if the workers and their supervisory staff, they should come together under the banner of safety at work. But this is not possible unless and until the management is not committed, the management is not willing, the management is not allocating resources, and the management is not supporting health and safety practitioners, health and safety procedures, and the management is not aware the health and safety requirements for their specific project or the organization. Who will make sure, who will highlight these concerns? This is basically the responsibility of health and safety representative, health and safety engineer. Top management is committed or not, involved or not, supporting or not. This is not the case. But as a safety practitioner, it's your responsibility to highlight your concerns time to time as per the nature of the risk, as per the severity of the harm, as per the site condition, as per the site requirements, and as per the legal and contractual obligations. Dear friends and fellows, a safety practitioner should always pay attention to new workers and visitors. They are newly exposed to a workplace and can tell you if they have health problems only when they come into workplace. So always try your best to involve your workers in the site safety matters, in the site health concerns. If they are motivated, if they are involved, if they are serious, and if they are feeling the responsibility and sense of ownership within the organization or the project, they will definitely highlight their concerns, their problems. And in this way, you can easily understand what type of hazards are under control, where the existing controls are not sufficient, and further improvement is needed, and how you can do it. To achieve this goal, build a relationship of coordination. Share your knowledge and information through consultation and communication. One day, your sayings, your concerns, your talks, they will change their minds, attitudes, and behaviors. And once the site workers, they are motivated, it means the health and safety culture of the site or the project is positively developed. This culture is more productive. And in the positive health and safety culture, there are minimal chances of accidents and ill health cases. Dear friends and fellows, in very easy and few words, let us conclude the training session. Biological hazards are organisms, are groups of organisms that may cause health issues to humans. These hazards are very dangerous and have to be taken seriously by employees as well as by the employers. There are many ways we can reduce our risk to these contaminants. Engineering controls, administrative controls, personal protective equipment, workplace hazardous materials information system, and standard precautions. These all are the different ways to avoid risk to all levels of biohazardous materials. Biological hazards cause different illnesses and diseases. With effective control mechanism, we can get over biological hazards at our workplaces in our projects. You have to remember, prevention and vigilance is your only cure. Safety works when people work together, and you will never forget safety first. Safety first means your own life is number one priority. All other things, all other businesses, rest of the things are number two. And that's all for now. Training session is over. If you have any question, please ask in the comment section. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like, comment, and share the video. Hope to see you soon with a new HSC tutorial. Until then, take care. Good luck and goodbye.